Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your technical critic, and it's time for my review of The Legend of Korra Season 4, Episode 4, The Calling. Although why this is called The Calling, I literally could not tell you. However, despite the fact that the name has almost nothing to do with the episode, I would have to say this is one of the best Legend of Korra episodes I have seen in a very, very long time. It rivals that of The Legend of Wan. And yes, I'm willing to admit it is extremely Empire Strikes Back-ish. Okay, leave your angry comments down below. But before I begin the review, I would ask you to like, I would ask you to favorite, I would ask you to subscribe, but most importantly, I would ask you to leave a comment, even an angry one, down below the description, because this is not just a review, this is a discussion. You and I would give you my opinion. You are free to post whatever comments you want about the episode, questions, you name it. And then, at the end of this review, I'll put a link around here somewhere that allows you to skip, but really you shouldn't. We have a discussion, you can hear comments be read, and then you can hear my opinion on your comment. Or me respond to your comment, whatever it is. Alright, so let's begin. A lot of people have been saying this is The Empire Strikes Back, and the scene between Luke and Yoda, the two of them training each other, etc., etc., etc. And I have to say, okay, fine. I agree with you on some points. It does seem like that could be the case, but simply because Star Wars did it in a way that has become part of our pop culture history, it doesn't mean that that's the only instance where this happens. I mean, the mind boggles at the sheer amount of old, wise teacher training young, stubborn kid. I mean, the Karate Kid comes to mind as one. Dune comes to mind as another. I mean, just because Star Wars did does not mean Star Wars is the only thing that can do it. But it was very good to see this episode. Extremely well written. Katie Matila, oh my god, she is what Aaron Eshar was to Avatar Airbender. She has written such a good episode, and it was so nice to see Toph the way that you expect to see Toph. I mean, in the previous episode, a lot of people were like, oh, well, yeah, she doesn't care about anything. She's her old rough and tumble self. But you know what? Even if you think about Toph being her old rough and tumble self, there was a caring for the people who were around her there. And to be quite frank, I did not see that in the last episode. She seemed to be completely, just abrasive to the point of being uncaring. I mean, it almost felt like she was deliberately written to be trolly. But this episode, it seems to be the Toph we know went off into the wilderness to seek enlightenment. Okay. This seems like the character that would have resulted. Yes, you have a rough, stubborn character, but after an entire lifetime of just being, she has wisdom. She has knowledge. She is sagacious. And because of that, we are able to see how she is able to help Korra to overcome the burden, the PTSD, that post-traumatic stress that she has been carrying around with her. And wow, just wow, it came together so well. That being said, the very beginning of this episode had me extremely worried, because seeing the two Stooges plus the Deus Ex Machina go out to try and find Korra was, oh no, is this entire episode going to be about them? But no, it wasn't. We had some very humanized. We had Milo as the comic relief. We had Jinora as the aloof leader, and then we had Iki as the humanizing character. And you know what? I think it just has to go with the mindset that we've had for so long. With so much heavy stuff going on in Korra, I think that comedy really seems out of place. So to start off an episode that really ends on a heavy but hopeful note with some light-hearted humor, it almost It almost ruined the episode for me. I swear, it's not that it was bad. Looking back on it and reviewing it a second time so that I could do the review, it's what we needed after such a harsh ending at the to episode 3. It is what we needed. You need that that breather, that okay, here's some comedy stuff that you can ignore, some world building that we can do. Like just some of the stuff that happens. I mean, you've got Iki, especially with Iki. I found her to be very comedic. You've got Iki tied up in a chair, but she's still able to take her arms out and like look at the map and wipe her eyes and do all that stuff. And she's still playing along with the guards that she's captured. But you know what? It's funny. It genuinely is funny, and I'm glad to see it. It really, it just goes to show you, you have to pay attention to everything that's going on in the episode. Otherwise, you'll miss it, and you can't afford to miss anything. Milo, I actually thought that his humor was funny. Going through the beginning where he's like, "There's a lot of things you don't know about me. Oh, you're so cute. You just chased off the only girl I'll ever love." It was so funny. I just was not ready for it. I was expecting something completely different and turned it on my head. But looking at it a second time, and that's the thing about Legend of Korra. You have to watch this. You have to watch the episodes several times before you get everything. Because the first time you watch it, you're just so invested in finding out what the story is going to be that it's only the second time you watch it that you're able to loosen up and go, oh. That being said, the episodes that were bad, that I've said that were bad, trust me, second, third viewing, they are still horrible. Now, in terms of compressing movies into Avatar format, this is something they've done before. The Sting was another example where they did this really well. This is an example where they did it really well, except that they happened to actually work it into the actual plot of the story. Ugh! I mean, seriously. What was the point of the Sting? How does the Sting relate to the Avatar universe in any way, shape, or form? Even if this is The Empire Strikes Back compressed into an Avatar format, at the very least it gives us some information and it helps us to develop the character in a way that is useful to the show. And saying that, let's compare it to another episode of Airbender that does a similar thing. Now, the headband is widely regarded as one of the lesser episodes of Avatar. Not to say that it's not good, but if you're to compare it to many of the other episodes that we get, it is considered one of the slower episodes and is generally not liked. However, when you take the context of the story, it's essentially Footloose compressed into Avatar format. Now, if you do not know what Footloose is, you have no idea how lucky you are. However, you should at the very least have some general idea of the concept. An outsider moves into a town that is rigidly controlled by one particular system and through dance teaches the people how to have a new way of life. And that's essentially what happens in this particular episode of Airbender. And what it gives us is it shows us an insight into how the Fire Nation came to be. Because for the longest time, the Fire Nation, as it has been proselytized to us and evangelized to us by the entire show and every group that they've been fighting against, are the worst possible people on the planet. They have no mercy. They just kill without any qualms. They just are a machine relentlessly pursuing the conquest of the earth and the water kingdoms. And that's what you get. And you wonder yourself, well, how the heck did normal people get like that? And it shows you the system of filing down that all of that basically starts with childhood, that all of those Fire Nation people go through. And it's because of this and this mindset of, well, the leader must be right, etc., that and the cutting out of fun and traditions and really focusing in on that military mindset that allows that manipulation to occur. And this is key in terms of character building, because it says, okay, yes, for the longest time, the Fire Nation has been our enemy, but it humanizes them and makes it relatable. And that's exactly what the Avatar does. He does the exact same thing that Footloose does. He brings dancing to the Fire Nation back again. And because of this, you see their traditions and how the juxtaposition of one world that was and one world that is come together and basically show, yes, these are still people. In terms of Korra's struggle as well, I thought it was very well done to show it through the flashbacks that, okay, the thing that Korra is carrying happens to be not just this medal, but it's the reason that she's hanging on to this medal is because she's still fighting. Throughout the season, we've seen, okay, Korra defeats this person, Korra defeats that person, Korra defeats this person, and she always seems to come out the winner. However, what it never seemed to show was all these things Korra was doing, or if it did show it, it mentioned it in the most minor of ways. I remember I recall somewhere in season 2 where she was having a conversation about how the Equalists just really seemed to want equality, and that was something of the reason for the mistakes that were made with the spirits. And then you have the Avatar basically having her mind changed by her uncle. The massive commotion that occurred over the harmonic convergence basically changes the Avatar's mind and says, you know what, maybe Wan was not correct in doing what he did. Maybe the two worlds should be united, and you see this thing happen as well. So it's very subtly hinted at. It's exquisitely subtle. You have to really search for it if you wanted to make that connection. But it is there in theory. In terms of season 3, the repercussions of that we never actually see come into the Avatar's mindset, that the Avatar, and it's mentioned by Toph, and even though Toph is busy going and saying, well, you know what, this is what this leader wants, this is what this enemy wants, this is what this enemy wants, this is what this one enemy wants, and because they were all out of balance, this is why they took it too far, and this is why their movements essentially failed and they became your enemies. And throughout the entire thing I was saying, no, that's not entirely it. I think that these are issues that the enemies were using in order to further their own goals. Because what was the purpose of Unalaq becoming a dark avatar? I mean, let's face it. Unalaq is a very spiritual man. He can tell the difference between a good spirit and a bad spirit and knows why spirits are good and why spirits are bad. So he should at the very least be familiar with the concept of Rava and Vatu, correct? One is a corrupting spirit, one is a benign spirit. So when he encounters Vatu, should he not then be able to resist, or was he himself then corrupted? That's a big question mark that has just been left as a whole for us to fill, because if he has been corrupted by Vatu, again, that's an entire another storyline that we do not see, and we definitely need in some kind of mini-series or spin-off to explore. If it's not the case, and the question is, well, did he see Vatu and just said, well, you know what, I believe that the spirit should be back in the world, I can use Vatu, and in that way did he become corrupted? That then becomes a bigger question as, okay, well then what were his original motivations in this entire spirit world thing? We hear through season 3 that kidnapping the Avatar was a part of the plan the entire time. For the last 20, let's see, it was 3 years later, she's 21 now. So for the last 18 years, this has been the plan. Probably longer than that, because you need to find Zahir, he needs to free Pai Li, they need to get the entire gang together, infiltrate the Red Lotus, become a part of the Red Lotus, grow into respectable members, and then break away and form their own shadow organization. So you see what the conflict is here. And as well, even if we're to go back to the Equalists, Amon saying, look, I want everyone to be equal. Well, it turns out, no, he did not want everyone to be equal. He was a waterbender, who was claiming he wanted everyone to be equal. So it was all an elaborate lie. It was an extremely elaborate lie. However, that's not what we're supposed to take away from that. What we're supposed to take away from that is that even though that there are enemies, even though they did things completely wrong, we can still learn from them. We can still take their mistakes and turn them into positives that we can then use to help better the world and bring it into balance. And as far as the episode said with that, I thought it was a very good way of dealing with Korra's issues. And the way that they then dealt with it as to have Korra say, okay, or sorry, Toph say, you now have to go and lift yourselves of these burdens. Those fights are over. And as she rid herself of the poison, how do I put this? It really does show, in a very short period of time, mind you, but still, it really does show the process that needs to go through, that a person needs to go through in order to get through such a traumatic experience as Korra has. And I think it was written really well. This episode is multi-layered. Now, is that the end of Toph? I hope not. I hope we do get to see her come back. Will Korra's problems be instantaneously solved? Because while Toph might not have been the, okay, here's the magic solution, Korra can now go back, the question is, well, now that Korra is better, will she then immediately take an active stance? Is she flying to Zaofu? Will she be in Republic City first? Are they going to pick up Asami and get the gang back together? How is this going to work? I'd originally hypothesized that Korra was going to hang back for the majority of the season, and we were going to let the conflict between imperialism and dictatorship play out against each other, and that was going to be the main focus. I no longer think it's the case. I think that they've said, okay, you know what, we need to get Korra back in the game. It's nice to have these nice character building exercises, but we need to do it in the background of Korra. She's the main character. Fine, fair enough. But what will, if what we've seen, if this episode is the indicator for what things to come are, then I'm perfectly okay with taking back and really eliminating any issues that I have with the short writing season for season 4. If this is the best episode of the series, but the others are able to match it, I think we'll be okay. If this is just the stepping stone to even better episodes of the series, I'll be tearing my hair out because, oh my god, we have this great series. Why are we not continuing this, Nickelodeon? You ruin everything you touch, even when you do something right. Keep the season going. I mean, look, we have a good writer. She clearly knows what she's doing. Can she not continue writing the Avatar series? Can we get previous avatars? Can we get new avatars? Literally, you have everything on the board in front of you. You have a license to print money. I don't know why you would not use it. But oh well. Could it have been the next Lord of the Rings style world? Certainly, but I doubt Nickelodeon is going to go that far. Oh well. So that's been my review. It was a magnificent episode. Lots to say on it. Lots to see. You have to watch it. It's comedically. It reminds you, yes, as bad as the Avatar universe can get, as heavy as everything is, you still have to laugh. There's still humor, and there's still small moments, and there's still romance, and this, that, the other. It gives us all these things on a platter and says, here, we know what you need. Take it. And thank you. I honestly have to say, thank you for such a magnificent episode. That has been my review, and I will see you in the discussion. Alright, this is the discussion portion of our review. If you made it through the review, you are awesome as always, and this is where I take all of your comments, I read them, and I discuss what you think in terms, just basically everything. So, let's begin. The first comment comes from Juan Rodriguez. Hello, Juan. Nice to hear from you as always. And he says, this episode was very good and very, very political. First of all, let's take the situation between Kuvira and Prince Wu. I was glad that Kuvira had the balls for not stepping down and declaring that excuse me, and declaring the monarchy dead. For me, the whole coronation is a total farce, because in reality, Wu is not going to rule, but his so-called council people. Let's not forget Raiko planned to send people to help Wu into govern the nation. Do you think Kuvira was going to let that happen after busting her butt for 3 years in uniting the nation? To be quite frank, no. But you can tell. The setup for the conflict between Captain Kuvira and Prince Wu, you could practically see it a mile away. It's not that it's bad, it's simply that it's almost transparent. But, as I said in last week's discussion, when it comes to dictators, they tend to be very charismatic. They tend to be very open about what they're going to do. I mean, go back and just read a transcript of anything Hitler ever said. It is astonishing the stuff he got away with saying in the modern context. You would say, and you as a rational person just looking at it would say, my God, how could they be so blatant about what they were going to do? Did no one of moderation stand up and say, hey, you know what? That's crazy talk. Well, guess what? The reason that they're able to do that is simply because when they do what they do it in a way so that people are forced to rely on them. She's basically the government of all these different areas. She's united. She provides the food. She provides the protection. She keeps order and stability. So guess what? If that's the price you have to pay for not having your children carried off by bandits, or not starving through the winter, or at the very least being able to make a living, people in those situations are absolutely ripe for the picking for these causes. And it's like, well, you know what? Whatever bad they're doing is outweighed by the good. So what? She throws a few people who protest in prison. Well, at least it's not me. That's how these things get started. That's how wars get started. Oh, well, you know what? I'm not the one who's being affected badly, so you know what? I'm going to stick with what I have instead of try and break. It's very hard to break out when you're under that thumb. You don't have a secondary reference point. It's only once you leave and come back that you're like, wow, how do we put up with this? This is insanity. It's a real problem. It is a truly real problem that the world faces, that there is no reference point for people. And it's why revolutions are happening. People finally got a different reference points. That's the beauty of social media. It's like, think about it. If there was Facebook in the Avatar universe, and leaders were communicating with each other going, hey, you know what? This ain't working out. If the governor of the province of Yin was able to communicate with President Raiko without his mail probably being sorted by Kuvira loyalists, you actually think that what had gone down at the coronation would have been allowed? Hell no. They probably, if the takeover the way it was in Yin was anything representative of the way it was in any of the other provinces, then there is no way they would have even let Captain Kuvira back into Republic City for the coronation. They would have said, okay, this is our king, we're taking him to Ba Sing Se. Captain Kuvira must step down because he is taking charge. And sure, maybe you would have plunged the entire thing back into civil war, but you know what? At least you would have the guy that you're trying to stick in power in the place of power, and not Captain Kuvira basically being able to go, well, you know what? Crush. This guy has no authority. Smash. Continuing, he says, also, I was stunned that Suyin did not step in to trying to unite the Earth Kingdom when the chaos began. I believe Kuvira lost her faith in her, because Sue could have done something. But no, she just stood by and ride out the storm. Well, that's the thing. When you look at the Metal Clan, they seem to be fairly independent and extremely self-reliant. So when you have a group like that that's basically essentially isolated, and you come to them, and then another outside party comes to them and basically says, yeah, hey, hi, we kind of need all your help, all your resources, everything to step in and pick up the pieces. It's actually quite representative of what the League of Nations was leading up to World War II. That's basically the story that they're telling. That you have all these leaders that are coming together and say, well, how do we take care of this situation without actually having to get directly involved? Because we don't want to start a war. We don't want to go in places and force people to do things, right? It's basically that unwillingness to act that allows people like Kavir to take power. It's basically like, okay, if I can weather the storm, maybe the storm will pass. Well, no, if you weather the storm without doing any prep work, your field is going to be flooded. And that's exactly what's happened. The fields are flooded. Now they have to work at trying to clean up this mess, and it's only going to get messier. But I can understand Suyin. She's not a fighter. She's a leader, but she's not really a fighter, I would say. Well, or at least if she's a fighter, she's not a fighter on the level that Kuvir is. I mean, she's more of an adventurous if you look at it that way. Moving on. Now, about Korra and Toph, this one is very tricky. I know Korra has PTSD and it's very hard to get back on track, but in the end, she has no choice but to do that on her own. Toph has always been a hardcore teacher, but that does not mean she cares. Korra needs to fight her demons by herself in order to become stronger. If not, then she has no business to be the Avatar. Well, let's not talk about people who had no business being avatars, because in 1,000 avatars, there's a laundry list of avatars who did horrible, horrible jobs. Ay. But I do agree, Korra did need to get over the demons herself. It's not something that someone else can fix for you. It's something that you have to fix, but other people have to be there to support and help you. And I did not appreciate Toph's attitude. I absolutely did not appreciate Toph's attitude. Comparing episode 3 Toph to episode 4 Toph, you would swear they were completely different people. And I can tell you why. Tim Hedrick wrote episode 3 Toph. And as we know, everything Tim touches tends to wither and die. Why is this? Let's take a look at the last thing he touched, the Dai Li. The Dai Li went from being the most powerful earthbenders who did pseudo metal bending and could take out an avatar, a king, damn near took out Azula, 5 generals at once. That Dai Li, trained by Avatar Kyoshi, arguably one of the most powerful avatars of all time, that fighting force was brought down to, okay, here's 20 untrained airbenders, blasting them with a wave of air. They did not fire a single shot. They basically stood back and let them all escape. That is who we're dealing with. Katie, on the other hand, she seems to have a very good grasp of how to write characters, with experience. I mean, I ask you this honestly, would the Dai Li not have gotten better with age? They seem to only get more powerful as time goes by. Why are they so horrible now? Honestly, I ask you that question. Why are the Dai Li horrible now? But it's just Tim. Tim has a tendency to do this. It's not the show's fault. I know that, but meh. And last paragraph. Finally, yes, I agree with Toph. One day the world would not need an avatar and needs to take care by themselves. I always find it arrogant that the Avatar is the mom and pop of the whole world, and only they, can bring balance to the world. But nothing lasts forever. It does not matter how many bad guys the Avatar beats, there will always be evil in the world. At some point, the nations need to solve this problem, and it seems Tenzin made a huge leap by making the airbenders peacemakers. I don't think Bright will go onto this route, but I wish I could see the world without the Avatar. Well, here's the thing. Just going back in the Avatar mythology, here's what I know. Even if the Avatar, as a person, ceases to be a thing, let's just say the Avatar cycle ends entirely. Okay, fine. Vatu and Rava still exists as spirits, right? One cannot be destroyed, one or the other can't be destroyed. They both exist inside each other. So even if Avatar Korra is destroyed, sure, or any Avatar at some point gets killed in the Avatar state, and that's the end of the Avatar cycle. All it means is that Rava's spirit will separate from its human host and will then re-enter into the world through Vatu. I mean, and then with harmonic convergence, you have the two of them battle it out again. Rava will either grow inside of Vatu to the point where she can overpower him, or Vatu will overpower her, and 10,000 years of darkness. So, those are your two options. Avatar, possible 10,000 years, 50% chance of 10,000 years of darkness. The odds are not good. The odds don't look good. They really do not. And in terms of, yes, only the Avatar can bring balance to the world, that's not true. Other people should try and bring balance to the world. But here's the thing with institutions of power. 100% of the time, they inevitably become corrupted, and by becoming corrupted, they themselves go out of balance. At that point, it then falls to an outside force to bring them back into balance. And in a universe where there are essentially spirits that control everything, having the Avatar as that almighty, half-human, half-spirit being that can come in and say, okay, look, enough is enough. This is the end. Think about this. If there was no Avatar, and the Fire Nation had hatched its plan to go and invade the Earth Kingdom and take over, they'd have succeeded. I mean, Fire Lord Sozin, they'd have fought the war. They'd have found out that the comet was coming. He'd have used the power of the flames to deal a heavy blow to the Earth Kingdom, and he probably would have won, and we'd have seen the Earth Kingdom succumb to a Fire Kingdom imperial dictatorship, and that's exactly what we would have gotten. The world would have been absolutely out of balance, and there would have been nothing that could have rebalanced it. I mean, honestly, what would have rebalanced the world? If not for the Avatar, we would not have had the ability to rebalance, and that seems to be the case in every age. I mean, yes, what did Toph say? She said, look, I was police chief for years and years and years. The streets didn't, the names of the people running the streets didn't change. Or, sorry, the streets themselves didn't change, but only the names of the people who were running all the street gangs and such. Okay, fine, you're right. It is absolutely impossible to eliminate all crime and all evil at any single point in history. It doesn't matter how much prosperity we have. It doesn't matter how much educated we become, access to information, access to whatever. It does not matter. There will always be someone out there who is a little bit greedier, a little bit more violent, a little bit more ready to do the wrong thing in order to get ahead. Okay, yes, we know that. But guess what? If we, the people, do not actually stopped fighting that and just simply gave in, they'd win. And everything we know would go to rack and ruin. There goes all of your precious freedom. And yes, I know, freedom is a privilege, not a right. Freedom is an illusion, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? If we were to give in, we would have no illusion. We would have no privilege. We would have none of the things that we consider sacred. And think about this. If Top, as the police chief of the city, had simply knuckled down and said, you know what? I'm done. There's simply no reason to continue to go and arrest people for the crimes that they commit. The few people who were hurt because of the criminals and that were then caught later because of the crimes they committed, guess what? Those few people would have expanded exponentially, because guess what? When criminals have the freedom to run rampant and take and just do whatever they please, guess what? They do whatever they please. It's not like, oh, well, you know what? Sure, we can do whatever we please, but we're only going to terrorize a very small group of individuals. No! Absolutely not. The entire city would have collapsed. This is not Megamind. This is not the case where when the bad guy wins, he suddenly gets bored of doing what he's doing and decides to become good. No, not at all. They're doing this for profit, pure and simple, and profit never gets boring. That's simply the way to put it. So yes, the world needs its avatar. The world needs its non-corrupt police chief. Otherwise, the small amount that we have becomes nothing at all. And without that, it's chaos. And yes, you're right. It is a huge leap to turn the air nomads into peacekeepers. But even with that, there's not enough of them. Even if the air nomad nation was to come, the air nomads were always a very small nation, constantly on the move from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. Okay, fair enough. Is it then fair to give one nation the entire authority over all the others? Because that's where you then get into conflicts of interest, like who is doing what. Personally, I see the Airbenders as Canadian. Don't ask me why. I just do. I am Canadian, so that's probably why I do. But even so, the size of the world it's already been stated. The size of the world is simply too big. There are too many people out there. There's too much going on for simply a singular small group to take care of everything. And clearly the nations are no good at policing themselves. Otherwise, everything you see happening would not be happening. It's a really weird conundrum. It's almost paradoxical. But I do think the world needs its avatar, and I don't think I could see the world without the avatar, because without the avatar, the world would be as Zahir intended it, complete and utter chaos. I mean, sure, out of chaos emerges order, but guess what? That order eventually sinks right back down into chaos. You need order in order for there to be progression. I mean, that simply is the way it is. And as to Bright not going this route, yeah. The world without an avatar. How would you spin that? Everyone has bending. It's an interesting concept. I'll give it that. And I would like to see. Here's what I would like to see. Give me one season of Avatar where the Avatar is too young to be Avatar, not fully trained yet. And the series is then, okay, sure, the Avatar is off training. Here's a conflict that's going on in the world at that time. How does the world then handle that, right? While waiting for the Avatar to come and solve everything, right? Because there are those in-between periods where the Avatar has to train, and in that meantime, the world is going to rack and ruin. So that's something that could possibly be explored. You never know. You really never know. Good comment. Very, very good comment. Very interesting comment. Juan, you always leave me good comments. I am so proud of you. Alright, moving on. Alright, our next comment comes from Overdose85. He says, probably you get this a lot, but why the serial rapist mask? And there's several answers to this, the best of which seems to have come from Akeem Bowman, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. However, he says, most likely because he does not want anyone seeing his face. Not everyone wants their identity to be known to the world. And he's quite correct. This keeps my anonymity perfectly fine. I never mention my name, just go by my title. And it also it focuses you on what I have to say, and not just on my face or what I'm doing. And also, I don't know how to do makeup, so this is my quick workaround. And also, where did you get the idea this is a rapist mask? Allow me to tell you the stories behind them, because this is actually two masks. The first one that you see here, this one, came from a costume I had of Zorro when I was 10 years old. I had seen Zorro the movie, and I was enamored. I loved the sword fighting, so I said I absolutely have to be Zorro. So parents, they bought me the costume, everything. It's still downstairs in the basement. I got the hat, the cloak, everything. It's still down there. And this I took from it so that I could cover the top part of my face. I still use it actually. Whenever I go out to parties, I tend to go to masquerades. And this hat, nice suit jacket, you're good. And that's simply his explanation behind that one. This particular one has a much more interesting story behind it. You see, I have 3 wisdom teeth, 2 on the top, and I had 3 wisdom teeth, I should say. 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom. Now I only have 2. The one on the bottom happened to have inverted sideways, so it was in my jaw still, but it was below the gum. But if it came out, it would have been pushing directly against my back molar, which apparently is not a good idea. So the dentist said, well, that has to come out. And they made me sign a form that says, oh, on top of getting freezing and all the liability, by the way, you can't sue us if you can no longer taste things after this surgery. To which I promptly said, what? Are you kidding me? I think my ability to taste trumps any cavity I could possibly ever get. However, after talking me down after several hours, they managed to get me to sign the form, and away we went. They knocked me out, did the whole thing, and a couple hours later, TP was supposed to film it, but she was working that day apparently. And a couple hours later, woke up, happened to have an ice pack plastered against my face with this thing holding it there. Because when the dentist said, okay, we're done with the surgery, there's going to be a lot of swelling, how do we hold the ice pack to his face for the next few hours? I don't know. Here, grab that surgical mask and just slap it on. And that is the story of my ghetto ass dentist, and how they happened to decide to attach a ice pack to the side of my face. 24 hours after that, I was seeing the Book of Mormon, which I had to say was mediocre at best. It was like a very long episode of South Park. I don't think it deserves the critical acclaim that it's been getting for all these years and years. It's good. It's just it's not amazing. Like, it's not life-changingly amazing. Like you won't laugh through the entire thing. But it's still worth. If you have tickets, still go and see it. I mean, I didn't think too highly of it. But then again, I'm not a great fan of South Park, so whatever. But that's the reason behind the mask. That's the story behind the 2 masks. I've got other ones. Like I've got this one, which I actually bought for the exact same purpose as the top one, Masquerade Ball, and I used to use it in my previous reviews, and now and then it will make an appearance, like now, if ever I need to change characters quickly, like, hey, like, da-da-da-da, hey, why don't you try something, da-da-da-da, it happens. I've also got another one in there. It's a Kalabari, it's an African Kalabari mask. I usually use it on Halloween, and since Halloween is coming up, tell you what, I'll make my raw reaction video in the Kalabari mask. It is uncomfortable as hell because it's made of plaster, and it's got these little ridges on the inside. I have to file them down, but you know what? Who has the time? I made it, let's see, grade 10. That was, I'm 24 years old, by the way, so no secret there. That was 2005? Yeah, 2005. So that mask is almost 10 years old. And actually, I have the design for it in the corner over there. I've got it. You had to plan on a nice big board, and then you did the plaster casting, and after that, you built up upon the mask all the different stuff. So it is my face. It's just my face with a lot of stuff added to it. All right, so not a bad question. Let us continue. All right, and our final comment comes from the real Bucky. Now, before I begin, I have to address something. I many times have said that, and if you want to discuss almost anything at all, you can post almost whatever you want here in my channel comments. Links to articles, links to video, whatever. Just don't post anything that will get the channel banned or that is particularly, basic common sense stuff. Whatever you want to talk about, just stick it in there, have a discussion. If you can defend what you're saying, fine, and I'm more than happy to talk about it. Usually it'll appear in the discussion at the end of a movie review or at the end of a commentary on something that I've been working on. All the time, all day, any day. However, Bucky, this is the second time that you've done something like this. You posted pseudo-bondage pornography. And while it was well written, it was not particularly very good. And on top of that, that's not the kind of thing that I want here on my channel. Since this is the second time you've done this, this is your very last warning. If I see anything of the sort again, you are banned. Do you understand me? And just to make the point clear, where is it? Ah, here it is. That, those comments that you wanted me to read that were not particularly Avatar related, or were quite frankly extremely insulting, not just to my intelligence but to yours. Let's see. How to pronounce Kavira? Removed. Your thoughts on how I reacted to the first episode of Legend of Korra? Removed. Oh, here's the other ones. Removed. Removed. Princess Azula can stay. Removed. 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 There goes the pornography. And, oh yes, the N-word turtles. Removed. I do not like having to moderate my comments. I don't like having to moderate my commenters. You want to know why? This is the internet. It's free space. But you know what? I have rules. And my rules very clearly state: no pornographic material, no pseudo-pornographic material. And if you want me to talk about it, it has to be related to what I'm talking about. Everything else will go in a separate or different discussion. People ask about the mask. That's part of the review. That's part of everything I do here. Sure, I'll answer that question all day, any day. Where I live, forget about it. You want to talk with me about these things? You have my email. In fact, I have an email for this channel. If there's anything you want to send me that you think is interesting or whatever, I have. It's in the About section. Just go there. I mean, if you have something that you don't think you can communicate, in public, go ahead. It's right there. If no viruses. I swear to God, no viruses. If you have something you want me to review, post it in the comments. I am more than happy to take a look at it. But other than that, come on. You're a smart man. I know you're a smart man. Last chance. However, moving on to the only comment that you've made in the last several weeks, with the exception of the Azula comment that is worth reading here. All hail Fire Lord Izumi. Oh, wait, what's going on? Infatuating. Well, you linked me to a picture of Fire Lord Izumi, and while that is not in particular a comment that I can do much with, Fire Lord Izumi in herself is a fairly interesting character, although not very well explained, because this is a show that you have to do independent research on. So let's go over the history of Fire Lord Izumi. Izumi happens to be the daughter of Fire Lord Zuko and the mother of General Iroh. However, in terms of diplomatic facts, there's not that much. We've seen her in one particular episode. She doesn't seem to have done much except to be the mother of General Iroh. However, there's a very interesting point to be made if we go to her family tree. Now, her family tree starts at Sozin and Roku and works its way down to Zuko. So, her grandfather, Azulon, married Ilia, and they had Iroh and Ozai. Ozai, of course, had Azula and Zuko, and he was married to Lady Ursa, who is the granddaughter of Avatar Roku. However, when looking at Zuko's family tree in particular, and Izumi, we notice that there is a very big unknown for Izumi's mother. And for this, I have to say, really, guys, you could not tell us who Izumi's mother was. In the fanfictioner in me, my heart is fluttering because, oh gosh, could it possibly be Katara? No, absolutely not. But a man can dream. Why not just say it was Mai? I mean, I know the two of them broke up in the promise. Oops, spoiler alert, the two of them break up in the promise. But in terms of having why is that not information that you can just give us? Does it have to remain unknown? Will it remain unknown forever and always, like the fate of Azula? Come on. Really? But it does bring up some interesting points for discussion, and who knows? Who knows where that might lead us? Who knows how it may even tie in? Will we see Zuko's potential wife? Probably not. Will we ever know for certain? Maybe, but I think the chances are extremely slim. However, the majority of the information, according to the reference section here from Avatar Wiki, seems to have come from a Comic-Con panel. So, the next time that Brian and Michael or any of the Avatar writers happen to be at a Comic-Con panel, it does not matter what Comic-Con panel they are on. Ask them, who is Fire Lord Izumi's mother? And, more importantly, what happened to Azula? Unfortunately, Knife Inc. was not able to make any review, so that is the end of our commentary section. However, I hope you enjoyed listening to my review, and I hope you enjoyed listening to my discussion. And I hope to see you in the discussion. If you like this video, if you made it all the way here, you are amazing. I know I'm very hard to watch. I know that you have, in terms of entertainment watching, in terms of people who do reviews, you have a plethora, a smorgasbord of people to choose from. However, like the Gold Rush, in terms of the way that YouTube works, like the Gold Rush, if you never tried, what was the point in ever knowing it existed? The dream is there, and it must be chased, and it must be chased hard. Otherwise, you're just a dreamer. So, that's been my review. That's been the discussion. Links will be down there. I'll have a link to the Patreon page. Yes, I have a Patreon page. Give as much or as little as you like. The 5th lowest donation gets you something from me. What is it? What is it? I'm not going to say. But you will get something from me. My Twitter is down there. Links to other videos down there. And the podcast. We will be doing the podcast not this week, but potentially next week. I'm not too certain. We still have to work out a few things, but there will be another episode of the podcast at some point in the future. It's not going to be the weekly thing that we dreamed of, but we will get a second podcast underway before the end of the series. So look forward to that. We usually advertise it on Twitter. We don't usually advertise it here because, videos hard to watch, etc. Not much rewatch value in a 2.5-hour video. But yep, I've been the Technical Critic, and as always, I'm also writing underneath the pseudonym Matthew and A for Thoroughly Entertained. They're a movie review website. They're very good at what they do. Joshua and Kate, Scott and Kate, they do extremely thorough reviews. I suggest you check them out. That link is going to be down there as well. And as always, I will see you next week and in the review.